A few weeks ago, we had our first behind-the-scenes look at the Public Information Department of the Jehovah's Witnesses, or PID for short. If you haven't watched that video yet, I have a link in the description below. In this video, we'll take a look at the PID manual and some JW advertising campaigns you might have heard on the radio, read in your local paper, or even watched on TV. Then we'll see what the organization really thinks of the secular media. And we'll end with the huge media complex they're building in Ramapo and examine whether their online push this past decade has been successful. The Policies and Procedures Manual for the U.S. branch office highlights how the organization is now being run like any other bloated corporation. Here's a section you might find interesting. Notice how spokesmen are directed not to use the term member for rank-and-file JWs because of legal implications. In fact, there's a whole page of terms that spokesmen can or should not use. Terms they are told to avoid include the truth, worldly, or non-believer, because it may contribute to the impression that Jehovah's Witnesses believe they are superior. It's fascinating that they realize exactly what those words do in terms of cult speak and how it looks like to everyone else. They also coach interviewees about what they should or should not say. Nowhere are scriptures like Luke 12 verse 11 and 12 mentioned. The Holy Spirit isn't even referenced once in this 140-page manual. Isn't that odd for a department that oversees all government, academic, and media contact work within the branch territory? It's just another corporation. One of the most recent campaigns for the Public Information Department is for the Enjoy Life Forever interactive Bible course. In the US, they have several different 60-second, 30-second, and 15-second spots. Here's a sample of one.
Thousands of New Yorkers will be introducing an interactive teaching platform to the public that helps make Bible study easy to understand and retain. Using multimedia elements to provoke rich conversation, the Enjoy Life Forever program is a free resource being used globally in hundreds of languages. As a teacher, Jen Calvert says this format has shown great results.
This isn't a dry study of the Bible. It's an interactive program designed for a generation that wants the Bible to breathe purpose and hope into real-world situations through discussion, videos, and thought-provoking questions.
U.S. spokesman for Jehovah's Witnesses, Robert Hendricks, says this is a big leap from the printed page.
Well, our approach really is all about reaching people's hearts by engaging their minds. This is how people learn today. And though we're well known for printing books and magazines, we've adapted our methods to meet the needs of learners.
To find out more about the interactive program, search Enjoy Life Forever on jw.org.
Each segment is also localized for a different state.
Thousands of Californians will be introducing it. Thousands of Texans will be introducing it. Thousands of Floridians will be introducing it. Thousands of Hawaiians will be introducing it. Thousands of Pennsylvanians will be introducing an interactive teaching platform to the public that helps make Bible study easy to understand and retain.
Running parallel with the radio are the print ads that are to follow this format. Here is one article for comparison. And here are a few more of these published articles. The PID has been successful in getting the organization airtime.
Joining us via telephone is Robert J. Hendricks. He's the national spokesperson for Jehovah's Witnesses in the United States, and it's so good to have you with us.
Thank you very much, Bo. It's good to be with you.
Hey, before we get into the interesting way that the pandemic has affected so much of what you do, as a national spokesperson, what is your role?
Well, my role is to kind of be the face of the organization for the media, for government officials, for academia. We really are kind of the official source of news from the organization. And that's important because there are many sources of other news from the organization or about the organization that may not be so official. So for them to see something coming from their headquarters and having a spokesman attached to it, it just gives a legitimacy to the message.
Let's head to the live line where national spokesman for the Jehovah's Witnesses, Robert Hendricks, is standing by talking about their global campaign. Hi, Robert.
Hi, Fawn. Nice to hear from you again.
Hey, it's good to have you because if ever there's been a year when it's hard to get the word, the good word out there to people, it's 2020.
Oh, you're not kidding.
Ugh, hate this year. So you guys are doing something special with your Watchtower, correct?
We are, yes. It's a global campaign, and it's interesting because it's the scope of it that's so powerful. We are in 240 lands. All 8.6 million of our publishers, who are congregants, which is along with nearly 100 branches, are sending out a special magazine, the Watchtower magazine, on God's kingdom to every government official, public official, business in every country, every town, every city in the world.
Well, I have a special guest on the phone. His name is Robert Hendricks. Hang on just a second. Robert, are you there?
I sure am, Bubba.
Oh, well, good. You're on the air right now, and I understand Jehovah's Witnesses are having a big convention here pretty quick.
We sure are.
Yeah, and I'm glad you got on. I wanted you to come and explain what it's all about this year.
Oh, thank you so much, Bubba. I appreciate it. Typically, we would have these conventions live, but during this very unique time, we have united really the world of our faith by bringing it to a virtual platform. And so it's about faith. It's the theme of the convention is powerful by faith.
You know, organized religion has played a vital part in all of our existence. But there is one group that has been misunderstood, and of course, I'm going to hopefully try and clear that up. And I'm talking about the Jehovah's Witnesses. My guest this morning is Robert Hendricks. And Mr. Hendricks, first off, good morning and welcome to the program.
Well, it's great to be here, JD. We certainly appreciate being able to speak with you about this.
I think that, again, as I am talked before we got on the air, it's like I'm familiar with the Witnesses, but there are a lot of people who do not understand what the Jehovah's Witnesses are all about. Can you give me just a brief history of the group?
Absolutely. Well, first and foremost, Jehovah's Witnesses, we're your neighbors. And I say that because many people think that perhaps we live cloistered somewhere or that we're in a community on our own, but really, we're just your next door neighbor. We look like you. We act like you in many ways. We have families. We have jobs. But we also consider ourselves first and foremost ministers of our Father in the heavens and his Son, Jesus Christ.
And with us is Robert Hendricks, national spokesperson for the Jehovah's Witnesses. And you guys set out on a pretty ambitious project to contact all the elected leaders here in the United States. Robert, thanks for being with us and tell us about this.
You're very welcome. Well, it's been a historic campaign that we finished in November. Jehovah's Witnesses wanted to make sure that throughout the world in 240 lands, not just in the United States, but all over, our goal was to contact every government official in every business in all of the world, in all of the United States, of course, as well. And that would be to let them know that with all the problems that we're facing in the world today, with all the complex issues that are being faced, really the only solution is God's government, the kingdom that billions have prayed for centuries of time. Thy kingdom come. That kingdom is real, and we wanted to make sure that everybody understands that the kingdom not only is something we pray for, but something we really put our faith in right now.
PID spokesmen are also on TV shows and the news. Here are just a few examples. Let me know in the comments if you happen to catch any of these.
Our next guest considers his religion as Christian. They worship at the Kingdom Hall instead of a church, and they don't celebrate Christmas or other holidays, and a funeral is called a memorial. Joining us with some clarification on what they do and do not believe, welcome Robert Hendricks, U.S. spokesman for the Jehovah's Witness. Good morning.
Thank you very much. Great to be here.
All right. So by way of applause, how many of you have had a Jehovah's Witness ring your doorbell or knock on your door? Y'all are out there.
Yeah, well, we're usually not considered the neighbor next door, but the neighbor who knocks on
your door.
Yeah, right.
Right.
Because we kind of, being the neighbor next door, most people can't tell us from anybody else. We're just neighbors. Yeah. We have jobs, but we practice a different form of Christianity.
Yeah.
Well, that ring or knock at the door could soon be from your neighborhood Jehovah's Witnesses. But they're getting ready to go door to door once again after suspending the practice because of the pandemic. Well, News 12's Julio Avila has more on the revival of this tradition.
After 2.5 years of the pandemic squandering any kind of face-to-face contact, congregants from the Jehovah's Witnesses are now getting ready to do their well-known door-knocking once again. To make up for the lost efforts, the Jehovah's Witnesses say they shifted spreading their message through written letters and over the phone.
And we began shifting our ministry from that in-person work to virtual ministry.
Now, the Congregation of Jehovah's Witnesses have already been in full swing since the start of the summer. They've had these mobile carts out on the streets where they've been giving out these pamphlets. The congregation also tells us that these pamphlets are also essential, especially when they can't get into buildings that need a code. And they know that not everyone may open the door to them.
Welcome back. And we now welcome back Robert Hendricks. He is the national spokesperson for Jehovah's Witness. It's been about a year since we've seen each other. Robert, thank you so much for being back.
Yes, Betsy, a lot has happened in this year. It feels like a decade since we last talked, but thank you for having me back.
Yeah, good to see you. And you're right. So much has happened. It does feel like a little bit longer than that. But we're going to jump in today. Last time you were here, we were still talking about the fact that you were virtual because we were still dealing with pandemic issues. But now you've gone back to in-person ministry. Tell us a little bit about the decision to do that.
Remember the good old days before the pandemic when people coming to your door didn't have to wear a mask? And sometimes they were friendly members of the Jehovah's Witnesses coming to talk about faith and to gain your interest as well. They also had huge conferences through the year that drew millions. Well, that changed drastically when the COVID pandemic hit and took what seemed to be a main part of the faith away. Well, the faith and the millions who follow it still alive, and there's some noticeable changes. But they're good changes for the organization. Robert Hendricks is a U.S. spokesman for Jehovah's Witnesses. Dorian Gamble is a local media representative. Thank you both for joining me. Mr. Hendricks, I know we talked earlier, what an abrupt change, because you have millions of people through conferences around the world on a regular basis. Then when you went virtual, that was abrupt, but it seemed to have been successful.
Well, you know, you can't plan for a pandemic. So as we think about what happened a year and a half ago, 19 months ago, it's not only unprecedented, it's historic. And we look back on it and we come out of this, we think, a better organization, better able to serve the 8.6 million Jehovah's Witnesses around the world. When we went to a virtual format in meetings and also in our ministry and also with our conventions, it was something that new for us, but we had been preparing for virtual environment for many years.
We have offered to evacuate our congregants. We have about 460 meeting attenders, not all Jehovah's Witnesses, about 330 Jehovah's Witnesses on the island. We have been providing relief for all of the congregants and their family members, so all meeting attenders, not just Jehovah's Witnesses, have received our support. But after the quarantine period, yes, they will be relocated to homes of Jehovah's Witnesses, shelter in place there for the period of time as long as they can, and we will be caring for them, and their fellow Jehovah's Witnesses will be caring for them in their homes. But we haven't been using those public meeting places for over a year, and the simple reason is because even one person that we lose as a result of any level of negligence is one person too many. We need to put our Christian principles ahead of our personal preferences. Of course, in our hearts, we want to meet together. We want to go door to door. We want to see each other, but that's not possible at this time. And we're going to continue that for the foreseeable future, as long as the danger is clear and present.
It's been nearly a year since the Kingdom Halls were reopened, and this month's announcements for elders instructs them to remove the health notice sign at the entrance. Meanwhile, Bethel is still closed to visitors and tours. Do you see the double standard?
And what are some of the measures that you have put in place to witness despite the restrictions, despite the pandemic?
Well, you know, it has been one of the silver linings of this very dark and perilous time that we have been able to reach out to our neighbors through letter writing. We've been able to reach out to them through a personal letter, not simply form letters that address their need and provide some level of comfort. As well as we've called folks on the phone. We have done extensive telephone witnessing, calling our neighbors and just offering them a message of comfort, seeing how they are, first of all, and then offering them a message of comfort and offering them also to go to our website, jw.org, which can provide comfort as well. We've changed our homepage on jw.org over the last year to be more nimble and to address many of the needs that people are going through now. And so we've been able to direct them to that. And finally, we've had virtual meetings, which have been amazing because they're discussion based, and we've gotten our meeting attendance actually has risen. And we've also had virtual Bible studies. So we've been able to reach out to folks through technology, whether it's FaceTime or Skype or some other means or Zoom, in order to provide a continuous Bible study to those, and all free, of course, to those who need it.
Okay, excellent. And for my final question, let's circle back to St. Vincent and the Grenadines and their situation there. It is unclear how long this volcanic eruption will last, but we do anticipate that it will come to an end. What is the plan for the church to assist these families when they return home? We do expect that they will have a lot of rebuilding to do financially, physically, to their homes. Every part of their lives have been affected by this natural disaster, this natural phenomenon. So how will the church come through for their congregation?
Well, we're always there for our brothers and sisters and those who associate with us, especially, and also for our neighbors. We have set up a disaster relief committee that is assessing the situation. The first thing that we're concerned about is life. And so we're making sure that we are providing the resources needed to preserve life. But hopefully at some point, things will get back to normal in the country. Hopefully at some point, things will get back to normal for our brothers and sisters. They can return to their normal lives, whatever that post-pandemic normal will be. And we can begin looking at how we can assist them from the Disaster Relief Committee side. Typically, the way we do it is that we work with our brothers and sisters, we work with our congregants to assess their needs. First, physical. So we're providing relief. Then we're providing recovery. And then we're working to providing some measure of rebuilding, whether that's shoring up, making things safe and for them to return, and hopefully livable well into the future. And so we will be looking at all of that, and we're hoping that at the end of this, the damage is not going to be so bad. That this is just it's going to hopefully have reached its height already. But we are ready to assist our brothers and sisters, our congregants, our meeting attenders in whatever way that we can, especially in preserving their life and also at some point helping them to rebuild their lives spiritually, emotionally, and even physically.
A religious convention hosted by Jehovah's Witness members will fill Chase Field. We estimate that the economic impact on the city is going to be at least $60 million. But what Visit Phoenix has told us is that this convention is the largest convention event in the history of this city. What that means is that we're having a tremendous impact both ways on our delegates, but also on the city, and we love that.
Chase Field is getting a makeover from a ball field to a house of worship.
The stadium will welcome 40,000 people for a Jehovah's Witness convention this weekend.
Wednesday, there'll be a game. 12:01, we take the stadium. Within 24 hours, we're going to transform that stadium into a house of worship.
Robert Hendricks, the national spokesman for the Jehovah's Witnesses, previewed the organization's Love Never Fails convention.
We have a long history of having our conventions at baseball stadiums. In fact, the largest gathering known to New York City was in 1958 in Yankee Stadium and the Polo Grounds simultaneously, where 250,000 people gathered.
They're expecting 40,000 people to pack Chase Field Friday, Saturday, and Sunday after they transform it into a house of worship.
Our world has redefined hate. I don't think in our lifetime we ever thought it would come to this. This convention is defining love. And what they'll find at this convention is exactly antithetical of what's been outside and what they've seen in the news, because you will have ethnicities, different colors, different backgrounds, different languages all coming together. It'll take time to hook into the PA system here, to provide the right video and audio. That's probably the biggest thing. We'll be here till late at night doing that, so that tomorrow, when the program starts at 9:40, it is seamless.
Good morning, everyone. So there's volunteers on the field right now. You remember just last night, the Diamondbacks were at Chase Field playing against the Phillies just last night, and we actually won, by the way, if you didn't catch the game. But at 12:01 was whenever this convention completely took over this field, and that's when the transformation began. And that's what we're seeing here this morning, right, John?
Indeed, yes. That's what you're seeing. You're seeing volunteers take this stadium that was a baseball stadium last night and be our house of worship for 3 days.
Okay, so talk about this convention. It's very special. It's going to be huge. About 40,000 people were invited to this convention.
It is very special. When you think about not only having that amount of people here, but 5,000 of our visitors are from 41 countries, and many of them don't even speak the language. They're strangers, but their first embrace with our brothers and sisters here creates lifelong friendships.
Right. So this is going to be happening all this weekend. As we know, the Diamondbacks are going to be in LA playing the Dodgers. So what's going to be happening over the course of this weekend?
Well, the theme of this convention is Love Never Fails. And in a world that is so divided, that really has in many ways redefined the word hate, we hopefully, when we come here, you'll see the definition of love. Not only in the program, 3 days of instruction and encouragement, but also among the fellowship, among the brothers and sisters here, many of whom are staying in this city in 77 hotels, are going out, are enjoying this city, and coming back here each day for an excellent, refreshing spiritual program.
Right.
Were you hit with a little nostalgia watching everyone cleaning and prepare for the convention? I helped at every pre-clean because it felt like I was part of a greater purpose. I experienced two different types of elders that attended those pre-cleans. The first were those who showed up in their suits and clipboards. They obviously felt cleaning was beneath them and just gave orders. But then there were those elders who were sincere and kind, cleaning alongside the sisters. Cleaning is one of the few privileges sisters have in the organization. Since waking up, I volunteered at the food bank, children's hospital fundraisers, and an animal shelter. There are so many selfless and loving people giving their time and energy to help others, something I was led to believe wasn't possible in the world. Back in the 1920s and 30s, Watchtower owned their own radio stations, peaking at 408 stations, but they stopped for the following reasons. The May 15, 1957 Watchtower stated, and the reason why the radiocasters were used was that this good news of the kingdom could be preached in large population centers. In those days back in the 1920s, there were not very many house-to-house publishers in the large cities to reach the people with the kingdom message, and radio was the coming thing. Now we can give real attention to the people through home Bible studies. The record shows that in 1940, there were home studies with phonograph recordings and a question and answer booklet being conducted on a limited scale, whereas now there are more than 5,000 Bible studies being conducted weekly with bound books, booklets, and magazines as study aids. People could not ask questions over the radio as easily as they now can through personal contact and study in their homes with their own Bible. The July 1st, 1957 Watchtower wrote, "Modern man has various means at his disposal for trying to influence others to his way of thinking. There are the radio, television, and the printed page, but for effectiveness, nothing can compare with the method Jehovah's Witnesses have been using for many, many years, that of house-to-house visitation. Note, visitation evangelism, that is, house-to-house preaching, is more effective than Billy Graham's type. The scriptural method of house-to-house preaching is being recognized as the most effective way to preach religion. According to O'Brien, the laity too must use the Apostle Paul's method. But what about the Catholic clergy setting the example, as did Paul? Would that be expecting too much? Of course, Jehovah's Witnesses haven't abandoned door-to-door preaching, but why would they drastically cut magazine output, reduce pioneer hour requirements, again, increase focus on cart work, and spend millions of dollars and untold hours of volunteer labor on a new media complex in Ramapo if door-to-door was the most effective method of preaching? In the August 8, 1975 Awake, they criticized the Catholic Church for their radio station, quoting a priest who said, "If you really want to talk to listeners, then you have to meet them where they are. A radio program without an audience is just an exercise in piety." The Watching the World segment continues. Another innovation is a breakfast time show in several languages, aimed at current Holy Year visitors and called Hello Pilgrim. It features music, news, interviews, and information for tourists. It's not like the organization has morning worship talks in several languages, news reports, interviews, and certainly not music, right?
We have heard from many of you how much you've really appreciated JW News as a source of accurate information. In contrast with much of the misinformation posted on the internet and social media, Jehovah's people serve as a pillar in support of the truth. Well, under the direction of the Coordinators Committee of the governing body, the Office of Public Information, or OPI, prepares articles for the JW Newsroom. Now, they work closely with Public Information Desk, or PIDs, in our branch offices.
Can the Bible save a marriage that's in danger? The following interviews.
The program was comprised of spiritually upbuilding talks and encouraging reports. It also included faith-strengthening interviews, such as one with a member of the governing body, Brother Garrett Lewis.
In the following interviews, our brothers and sisters describe the love and care they receive from the organization and from each other.
Now, Brother Komoromi, it's time for you to give us a sample of your musical talent. Would you go and join our band?
Around the world, God's servants all rejoice. We praise Jehovah with a cheerful voice. Whatever comes our way, we fear no harm. We will get through, we have God's mighty arm. We won't give up, and no, we won't give in. Jehovah's on our side, this is a race. We'll win, we'll weather storms. Jehovah's strength will know, of his right hand, of his mighty arm. We'll never let go.
I thought that was a thrilling song. You brothers and sisters did a marvelous job on that.
Exactly. Oh, this is my song. Mine too. You have a treasured place in Jehovah's house. He will help you out. And you have a treasure. Stop.
What was it that Jesus said about casting stones? Or about telling your brother to remove the straw that is in their eyes? What do the Jehovah's Witnesses think of secular media? Let's take a look.
The propaganda that the world puts forward. Now, we have seen what the media says about Jehovah's Witnesses, haven't we? How distorted some of their reports are, and how they can paint a negative picture with regard to us.
The lies we want to talk about today are often called false news, fake news, misinformation, or false information. Lies destroy trust. They create doubts, and they can undermine our life-saving determination to follow Jehovah's direction. Misinformation about Jehovah's organization and the governing body. Jehovah's Witnesses have been accused of promoting communism, while others claim that we promote the ideals and interests of American imperialism. Our brothers and sisters have been called anarchists, and nowadays we are being called extremists, and the list can go on. What will be the next lie? Remember, lies create doubts and destroy trust. Some of what we can hear and read is based off misinformation campaigns of apostates. It may sound convincing, even to us. Even if we now say, I will not believe it anyway, I'm just curious to know what it is. Exposing ourselves to this kind of misinformation can create doubts and undermine our complete trust in the governing body. This makes us vulnerable. Jehovah will use his organization to lead us through the great tribulation. There is just no other way to succeed. And when it comes to news about Jehovah's organization, we can expect more lies to be spread as we get closer to Jehovah's Day. Let us therefore strengthen our trust today. The good guidance from Jehovah's organization during this pandemic is just another proof that Jehovah is with the governing body.
This next segment from governing body member Splane really rails against the media and apostates. Please notice how many times he uses the following logical fallacies: straw man arguments, ad hominem, poisoning the well, and hasty generalizations.
We're going to discuss two of the subtle means Satan uses to weaken our faith: apostasy and negative reports about Jehovah's Witnesses in the media. It's tricky, because the apostates don't advertise, "You are now on an apostate webpage." They often pose as sincere witnesses who just have questions or concerns. Now, when might we feel pressured to read something that the apostates have written? Consider this scenario. The unbelieving husband of your Bible student sends his wife a link to an apostate web page and says, "Here, you better look at this and see what you're getting into." Well, your student is concerned, and she wants you to take a look and tell her what you think. Well, that's not an option. Paul says, avoid them. That doesn't mean reading apostate literature or searching social media to see what they're saying about us. So what do you say to your student? You might say something like this: "I can imagine that this is very upsetting for you, and you certainly do need to know what you're getting into. I have a suggestion. We have nothing to hide."
No secrets? Did he forget about the Shepherd the Flock of God Elders Manual? If you're studying with the Jehovah's Witnesses, ask to see it. They won't let you. Sisters aren't even allowed to handle the book to get it bound. I didn't know this book existed when I was in. Or how about the Circuit Overseer Guidelines, Assembly Organization Guidelines, Bethel Manual, Branch Organization Manual, and the less interesting, but still applicable, Construction Servant Manual and Pioneer Book? Or why is there no news about all the child sexual abuse cases, even those where Watchtower is named, on the legal news section of their website? The organization didn't even mention when governing body member Jeffrey Jackson had to testify in front of the Australian Royal Commission. Why did they keep that secret? Do you see why they want to paint all negative news as apostate or from Satan?
No recordings of any kind are permitted. Cellular telephones, electronic tablets, or similar devices should not be used to transmit any part of the program. Program notes, whether hard copy or electronic, should not be distributed to others.
When you're at the meetings, listen carefully to what the brothers are saying. Watch how we interact with one another. Now, let's consider the second challenge we face: negative reports about Jehovah's Witnesses in the media. Now, here's a good principle to follow. Proverbs 14 and verse 15. I'll give you a moment. Proverbs chapter 14 and verse 15. It says, "The naive person believes every word, but the shrewd one ponders each step." Some people believe everything they read in the newspaper or see on TV. Do you? Should you? Consider this. Now, you're working from door to door, and you meet a householder who says, "You Jehovah's Witnesses are terrible people. You let your children die. You don't accept medical treatment." Well, you ask the householder, "Do you know any of Jehovah's Witnesses personally?" "No." "Then where did you get the idea that we let our children die and don't accept medical treatment?" The householder says, "I have it on good authority. I read it in the newspaper." Well, if it's in the newspaper, it must be true, right? Remember this: reporters have a deadline to meet, and a reporter may not have the time or the inclination to check the facts. Or the reporter may have written a balanced article, but then the editor changes it. Maybe the editor doesn't like Jehovah's Witnesses, or he's been misinformed about us. Now, it's bad enough if people in the world believe everything they read in the newspaper, but brothers, let's not be among them. Let's not be naive. Let's consider things carefully. Similarly, sometimes there's a TV program about Jehovah's Witnesses. Now, a few of these programs are balanced and fair. Many, or I dare say most, are not. And when they're not, you'll often find that the producers started out with a negative view of Jehovah's Witnesses, and then they looked for information to support their prejudice. So, whom did they turn to? Apostates and the clergy. From them, they got suggestions for people to interview, and we know what those people would say. At the very last minute, they may ask the brothers for comment just to give an appearance of fairness, but the program wasn't designed to be fair. It was designed to be unfair. It was slanted against Jehovah's Witnesses. Now, let's be clear. Some news organizations are very conscientious about their reporting, and they want to present both sides of an issue. And when Jehovah's Witnesses are concerned, they do so at their cost. If a newspaper publishes anything positive about us, the churches will push back. Our parishioners are upset. They subscribe to your newspaper, and they don't like reading favorable things about Jehovah's Witnesses. The message? If it ever happens again, you're going to lose subscribers. Now, this matter of Jehovah's people being the subject of malicious reports isn't new. As a result, some government officials are taken in. They believe the slanderous accusations of the apostates. Now, if they just take the time to check the facts, they'd see that they're being lied to, but they don't check the facts.
Good morning, everyone. For the record, Noelle Frame, State Senator from the 36th District, bringing this legislation to you before you today, which frankly is a result of really good investigative reporting. Investigate West did a deep dive report on years of sexual abuse of children that has gone unreported in a particular faith community here in Washington State because we don't have a mandated reporter law. In that particular faith community, the rule is if, unless compelled by law, religious leaders are to report allegations of abuse to the church central office as opposed to reporting it to authorities.
Now again, it's bad enough, brothers, when government officials are taken in by false reports. Don't you be taken in. Have you ever heard the expression trial by media? It works like this. Someone's charged with a crime, and the case is widely publicized in the media, and the media present the case in such a way that everyone who hears about it thinks the man is guilty. Of course, to avoid a lawsuit for slander or libel, these media reports are very carefully worded, and we need to understand what the wording means. Now, for the purpose of this discussion, let's consider another way we can test out words, and that is to pay attention to what the words mean. Remember, we talked about media reports and how these are very often carefully worded to avoid a lawsuit. So suppose a report indicates that someone has been charged with a crime or that he's being investigated. All right, you have two words, charged and investigated. It doesn't mean he's guilty. We may read that a person or an organization was sued and then settled out of court. Does settling out of court mean that they were guilty? Not necessarily. Now, in this country and others, court cases are often handled by a jury. Now, who are on the jury? Ordinary citizens with no legal training. But not only that, these ordinary citizens don't always have access to all the facts because the judge and lawyers decide which facts will be shared with the jury. So it's unlikely that the whole truth will ever come out in court. Actually, neither side probably wants the whole truth to come out in court. Now, sometimes attorneys deliberately withhold information that would be prejudicial to their clients. And in addition, the juries have prejudices like everyone else, and some of them just can't set their prejudices aside. I'll tell you an actual experience. Some time ago, a lawyer told me about a case he had. That was a case of medical malpractice by a doctor. There was a jury, and at trial, the doctor was clearly shown to be in the wrong. But the jury didn't give the patient a penny. The lawyer was confused, so after the trial, he approached two of the jurors and asked, "If you don't mind, tell me which part of the testimony you didn't believe." The jurors replied, "Oh, we didn't get that far. The doctor was cute, and we didn't want him to have to pay anything." With deep thinkers like that, no wonder many lawyers try to settle their cases rather than bring them to a jury. So when Jesus talks about prison and a judge, he's obviously referring to what a Gentile judge would do. Now, you couldn't necessarily expect justice from him. Why might he rule against our brother? Well, maybe he got paid under the table by the other party. Or maybe he was prejudiced against the race or the religion of the other party. Now notice, Jesus didn't say that the man should settle only if he was guilty. So brothers, let's not be naive. Don't believe everything you read. Just because an article is called a news report doesn't make it true. And an editorial is someone's opinion, and that someone may be wrong. And TV producers may have their own agenda, prejudice, and viewpoint. So, what do we say in revision? In conclusion, our faith is under attack, and we have to fight. Satan is behind the twisted teachings of apostates. He's the father of the lie, and those who lie are doing exactly what their father does. The apostates have nothing to offer us, brothers. All they have to offer is hate. All they have is, to offer is criticism and negative talk. But oh, how upbuilt we feel when we're with those who love Jehovah. If we're stabilized in the faith, we won't be quickly shaken by unfounded accusations by apostates or the media. False rumors are often spread during wartime. Brothers, this is war.
Did you notice any other logical fallacies in his talk? Please share it with us in the comments. The March 22nd, 1981 Awake wrote, "Most religious broadcasters could never compete with regular network programming for the American mass audience. When a religious program comes on TV, most people, bluntly put, turn it off. The problem for the electric church is, how can they reach the dedicated minority of viewers who want to watch religious programs? The answer? Revolutions in satellite technology, breakthroughs in computer applications, and the advent of cable TV systems and new over-the-air stations are turning the U.S. into a global village and making it economical to narrowcast to a relative handful of supporters, as Forbes magazine points out. So what if not everyone wants to watch a religious program? TV, like magazines, can now cater to specialized audiences. Instead, they must support the programs directly with their contributions. Soliciting and maintaining those contributions has become a massive computerized operation for most of the stars of the electric church. The computer is as vital to the electric church as the television to. The need constantly to raise money traps electric preachers in a boom or bust cycle. Big projects like cathedrals or universities or hospitals are started, followed by desperate pleas to the faithful for more money to finish God's work. Does that sound familiar?
The governing body has asked me to convey their sincere appreciation for all that you do. Your generous donations have played a part in strengthening that bond. The article series, How Your Donations Are Used, has highlighted tangible ways your donations continue to support our brotherhood. And many of us have benefited from the increased use of video streaming and conferencing for our meetings and conventions. We want to thank you all personally for what you've done to support these initiatives. We especially appreciate that we have the resources available to help our brothers when disaster strikes.
Let's just pause for a moment. This reminded me of the original breaking news article that was posted on jw.org right after the devastating earthquakes in Turkey and Syria. Notice they are completely indifferent to anyone that isn't a brother or sister. Meanwhile, tens of thousands of people have died. Horrific pictures, including those of parents holding their dead children's hands as they remain buried under collapsed collapsed buildings? Where is the love? Where is the compassion? Are Jehovah's Witnesses following Jesus' parable of the Good Samaritan when they only help and think of their own?
Under the direction of the governing body, we have been working hard on the Ramapo construction project, which will be a site primarily dedicated to media production. You may remember at the 2019 annual meeting, it was announced that site work would begin on this project in 2022. We are happy to report that work on this site is well underway. This will include completing an existing stone bridge, building new roads, removing trees, digging and laying sanitary sewer lines, building retaining walls, as well as the blasting and moving of over 1 million cubic meters of rock. Additionally, a new entrance will be constructed along with widening the highway for safer traffic flow near the site. And towards the end of the year, foundations for the residence buildings will begin. We eagerly look forward to hearing good reports on this project as it continues to develop. Like the Christians in Thessalonica, many of you support kingdom interests financially while enduring your own challenges. Paul commended the congregation in Thessalonica, and we commend you too. We take pride in your loving work, your acts of faith, and your financial support. Thank you.
Additionally, planning and construction of our new media production facility in the United States is moving ahead steadily. All of these efforts are supported by voluntary donations. If you would like to have a share in supporting the worldwide work of Jehovah's Witnesses, one way you can do so is through your financial contributions. For more information, please visit donate.jw.org.
But now, I would like to address the valuable things that may have first come to mind. Material possessions, or financial giving and support. Over the years, I have told various Bible students that a person could attend our meetings for 20 years and never put a penny in the contribution box, and we would not know it. Jehovah, of course, would know it, but we would not, because the donations are anonymous, but from the heart. Where does all of the financial support come from? Largely from you, dear brothers and sisters. Most funds come from what you voluntarily put in the contribution box in your Kingdom Hall. Yes, that little box with a slot that is labeled Worldwide Work is primarily what finances all of the theocratic initiatives that have been implemented. We in no way want to be categorized with other organizations, religious and otherwise, that coerce their supporters to donate. However, because all of us have the privilege to donate funds, we would like to let you know something about our current situation. We have looked forward to this next fiscal year and projected the expenditures for all of the theocratic initiatives we are scheduling. In doing the math, we found that the amount of money flowing out will be much greater than the amount of money that we have coming in at this time. Again, we are not in any way desirous of creating a hardship on anyone. However, we felt that if you knew the circumstances accurately, you would apply Proverbs 3:27 to the situation. There, we are encouraged not to withhold what is good. It is encouraging to note that even in lands with limited resources, the very poor contribute to the cost of their Kingdom Hall and its maintenance. We're all Jehovah's United people, even if we do not have much materially. If our heart is willing, there is usually something we can do, even if it is merely offering 2 small coins of very little value, as the poor widow did.
This Ramapo project is interesting because if we take a look back at the past decade, since JW Broadcasting has launched, quite frankly, it hasn't been very successful. They boast of how many views and clicks they've gotten, but those are useless metrics in what's supposed to be a life-saving work. For example, let's say I'm a telemarketer, and one day I make 100 cold calls and make 2 sales. The next day, I was really on and make 1,000 calls, but only make 1 sale. What Watchtower does is boast about making the 1,000 calls, but ignore that the success rate was even worse. Let's look at baptisms, the most important metric, since the whole point of preaching is finding so-called honest-hearted ones. Dividing the total hours in the ministry by the number of those baptized, you can see that more hours are needed to convert even less people. Let's pick their highest baptism total in the 90s, 2000s, and the 2010s to compare. We'll ignore the pandemic years because that skews the results, and it shows even less favorable results for the organization. In 1997, 375,923 people were baptized, which required 1,179,735,841 hours, which means it took 3,138 hours, or 131 days of preaching for each baptism. In 2007, 298,304 people were baptized, taking 4,800 hours, or 200 days of preaching for every convert. In 2019, before the pandemic, 303,866 people were baptized, taking 6,873 hours, or 286 days of preaching. That means the witnesses spent 900 million more hours in the field ministry in 2019 compared to 1997, and it still resulted in 72,000 fewer people baptized. Does that sound like Jehovah is blessing them? How long before the governing body admits how poorly they're doing, and they switch gears from saying that Jehovah is speeding up the work to something like, just as the Bible prophesied, the love of the greater number has grown cold? Their success rate has steadily gotten worse over the past 30 years, and not even JW Broadcasting has reversed the trend. And now, they're building a new media center in Ramapo. Why should the governing body care, though? It's not like they're wasting their own money and time building it. If you go to the community tab on my channel, I update with posts and polls throughout the week that you can comment on and discuss with others. Join us there too. Please like, share, subscribe, and comment. Special thanks to 96T5 Wagon and Nicholas King for buying me coffee, and to Flame of Jaw, KW, and Philip Randazzo for the YouTube super thanks. Thank you all for watching, and see you in the next video.